back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yeah!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going through.
Yes! Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Well, as we all know, unfortunately, the Union's run has come to an end in the MLS is Back tournament as they lost to the Portland Timbers by a score of 2-1. And honestly, I feel bad for not giving you guys this episode on Thursday because let's face it, anytime the Union lose, our favorite team, doesn't matter what sport it is, talking about a loss is a really, really tough thing to do. And I applaud Kevin Kincaid of It's Always Soccer in Philadelphia podcast for doing his podcast for, I think, 2015, 2016, I think he started. And he had a lot of bad games he had to talk about and everything. That takes a lot of courage and everything to go in week out and talk about the team losing and not being good at all and everything. And, it's really, really easy to do a podcast and talk about a team playing well, doing well, getting results and everything. But when a team loses and everything, it takes a lot of courage to go on and talk and give your thoughts and everything and still give a positive filled episode. And so that's what I'm going to try to do and everything. Yes, I'm sure most of you guys are still upset about that loss and everything, especially when we were so close to going to the final. But I know reading online, a lot of you guys said, well, at least it's not another loss in a final. So I definitely get you guys' pain and everything, even though I'm a newer fan than most of you guys and everything, but we're still going to try to find positivity in the negatives because I believe, no matter how bad a situation is, there's always positivity in the worst situations, and you just got to dig a little bit deeper and everything. And, we all hate doing that and everything, but, that there's definitely positives in the worst of every situation. I truly believe that and everything. So before, though, we talk about the game and everything, I want to talk about just the Union's overall tournament and the MLS is back. I want to talk about Blunder of the Week, the news, and I just want to give you guys an update about what lies ahead now that we're off for 2 weeks, no soccer and everything. So I'll give you guys all that in due time and everything. But as always, I want to start off the episode by reminding you guys about the Union jersey giveaway. There is, 1 day left. You guys are probably listening to this on Saturday and everything. So, 1 day left. As I've been saying, the giveaway was going from July 9th through August 9th. And, guys, somebody's going to be walking away with this jersey here in no time and everything. So if you guys haven't entered yet, there's 3 simple ways to enter and everything. And those ways to enter are leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, search The Free Kick Todd Lewis, show a screenshot of your review. That gives you 2 entries. Tag a friend on the post, that's 1 entry. Retweet this post, that's another entry. And the rules are only a max of 4 entries per person. The winner has 24 hours to claim his or her prize after the drawing. If the 24 hours pass without the winner claiming the prize, then we'll redraw a new winner. And last but not least, guys, this is the most important one. To be eligible for the jersey, you have to be following the Twitter account at FreeKickPod. And like I said, you guys have 1 day left, and somebody's going to be walking away with a free 2020 Philadelphia Union jersey. So good luck to all you guys. And if you guys haven't entered yet, you guys have 1 more day. But let's go into everybody's favorite topic, and that is the news. So the first bit of news I want to give you guys is, I don't know how close you guys follow the Union 2, but in case you guys missed it, the Union 2 have let go of manager Sven Gartung. I'm probably pronouncing that last name incorrectly. My apologies. But he was hired just this February. And U2, as everybody's been calling them, they had given up 18 goals in 4 games that Sven was in charge. And so the Union brought in former West Virginia University coach Marlon LeBlanc, and he was announced this Wednesday as the interim coach. So it will be to no surprise, I guess, if he gets the job, because the Union got the first victory of the season against the New York Pink Cows second team, and I think the average age for the Union's team was like 16 or 17. I don't know. I know it was very, very young, and it did not come close to what the Pink Owls threw out there and everything. So congratulations to Coach LeBlanc for becoming interim manager and getting the first win of the season for U2. And the next bit of news comes from The Athletic, who are reporting that MLS has yet again updated their playoff plans. And so the initial plan was to have 9 teams from each conference qualify. Now, the latest plan is calling for 10 teams to qualify from the 14-team Eastern Conference, which includes Nashville. And then there's going to be 8 teams qualifying from the West, which there are 12 teams representing the West. And the East will have 2 playoff games to cut it down to 8 teams and everything. So if that's confusing to you guys, I'll try to break it down and everything. It is 10 teams are going to qualify for the playoffs in the East. Doesn't make sense at all. It's more money going to MLS's pockets. But they're going to play a playing game, so they'll eliminate 2 teams and everything and get it down to 8. So basically, it's just a way for MLS to keep the TV revenue coming in and everything, because they're not going to get as many games. We all know that and everything. And then we'll just have 8 teams from the West, 8 teams from the East. Yeah, it's very, very complicated. It's like, just take the best 8 teams in the West, the best 8 teams in the East, and there are your playoff teams. But nope, MLS is like, nope, we see a chance of getting more money. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They're just going to send 10 teams from the East and play playing games and eventually knock those 10 teams down to 8. But, MLS is going to MLS, right? And the next bit of news I want to give you guys is the New England Revolution announced that midfielder Carles Gil has underwent surgery on his left Achilles tendon. The recovery period will take between 3 to 5 months. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is this important? He's not a Union player. Well, I'll tell you why it's important, because Stephen Goff of the Washington Post announced the Union's next game will be against the New England Revolution at New England come August 21st. As MLS looks to restart the regular season. So we saw how New England played against the Union without Gil, and I expect, it's probably going to be similar. Yeah, New England have a longer break than the Union and everything, but still, I kind of think that's a bad thing and everything. The Union are going to be used to playing where New England's going to have that long time off and everything, where they haven't played a game against another team and everything, and so they're going to have to get back into swinging things and everything, and it's a huge blow for New England. And I say it all the time, I want to see teams have their best players on the field and everything at all times, but, injuries always happen in sports, and the Union will definitely take advantage of this, in my opinion, and they are not going to be complaining. And the last bit of news I want to give you guys, so I asked you guys this last week, and it was, if Chester said that the Union can host games with fans, if the Union say, yeah, fans can come to the game, would you guys go? Well, a rumor has it that some MLS teams are asking the season ticket holders, if they allowed between 20 to 25% capacity, would you go? And those teams that have sent out the emails are as followed: Atlanta United, Cincinnati FC, Portland Timbers, and LAFC. So I've seen fans of those 4 teams talk about this on social media and everything, that they got this survey that said, hey, if we have 20 to 25% capacity, would you guys come out to a game? What's it going to take for you guys to come if we're allowed to host games and everything? And again, if you guys aren't thinking about this, if Chester say, yeah, you guys can host 20 to 25% fans in the stadium, you've got to wear a mask. Will you guys go to the stadium? I know the last couple of games, the Union have, throughout this whole tournament, they've hosted watch parties at Subaru Park, and they've looked pretty packed the last 2 games and everything, especially being a night game and everything. So I've got to imagine, if the Union say we'll have between 20 to 25% capacity, that is going to get filled very, very fast. But, that still remains to be seen. Will Chester allow fans? Will the Union say, yeah, we want fans? Will you yourself, the listener, say, yeah, I miss soccer so much in person, I'm going to go to Chester? It's a question we all got to think about if they allow fans in this stadium. So I know when I do these review episodes, I always start with my overall thoughts on the game. Then I talk about the good, then the bad. But honestly, guys, I just want to get the negativity out of the way, in my opinion, because, nobody wants to listen to a podcast ending with a whole bunch of negativity. Everybody wants to hear the positive stuff near the end and everything. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to just start with the negativity, and I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse for too long and everything. And if this goes longer than I expect, I'm so sorry. But, there's a couple bad from this game against Portland, and everybody's obviously talking about the VAR call and the blown penalty by Sergio Santos. And I will start with both of those topics. I'll get them both out of the way because I don't want to spend too much time talking about those two topics. Yes, those were two huge moments in this game, but let's face it. One, everybody's talking about it on social media, so you guys are probably tired of seeing this talked about on social media. Two, people that do Union podcasts are definitely talking about these two moments, in my opinion. And three, I just think there were other moments in this game that were concerning to me that really weren't talked about that much on social media, and I'm sure probably not on podcasts either. But let's just get into it. The Sergio Santos penalty miss. A lot of people are saying, why let a guy take a penalty if he's never taken one in his professional career before? I mean, that's a fair point, right? I think we can all agree that it really is a fair point. But can you blame Sergio Santos for stepping up and saying, yeah, I'll take it? He's a guy who has 3 goals in his last 5 games. So he has some momentum going for him. He's feeling confident. Plus, in my opinion, it's just way too easy for us to sit here and say, oh yeah, I knew he was going to miss because he's never taken a penalty in his professional career. No, you didn't. There is no data that can back it up that says where Sergio was going to place that penalty. There is no data out there that says, yep, he was 100% going to miss that penalty because he's never taken a penalty in his professional career. He had the goalkeeper beat. All he had to do was send the ball straight down the middle, and yet he skyrockets it. And, the moment just got to him. And for all the people getting on Jim saying, do you practice penalties? Oh, you guys need to practice your penalties because what happens when you guys get into a knockout competition where penalties are in play? Like this competition where after 90 minutes you go straight to penalties. And let me be the first to remind you guys that practicing penalties in practice is totally different than having a penalty in a high leverage game. You cannot recreate that in practice. You cannot. You are lying to yourself if you're saying, oh yeah, we're practicing so many penalties in a game, and when a high moment like that comes in this game where Sergio Santos could have tied this game at 1-1, you're not going to get that same atmosphere. You're not going to get that same feeling. And yes, he's playing in front of no fans whatsoever. So the stakes aren't as high as opposed to facing the opposing team's fans where they're just giving you stick and everything. He's playing in an empty stadium. But let me remind you, this is a penalty in a knockout game that could have tied the game up 1-1. It is a huge moment. And like I said, you just cannot practice this in practice. I don't care how many times you practice a penalty in practice. It is not going to replicate the pressure that Sergio Santos had against Portland. It just is not. It is not. And like I said, if Sergio wasn't feeling confident, he wouldn't have taken this penalty. The moment got to him, and now we know. Who's to say, we have a penalty in Chester and Sergio takes it? Who's to say he's going to miss it again? We don't know that. A penalty in a regular season game is a lot different than a penalty in a knockout game. And that's what people need to realize, that just talking about practice your penalties in practice. Yeah, it's going to help with placement, but you cannot recreate that moment that Sergio Santos was facing to level this game up in a knockout competition. He just knew what that goal was going to do for this team. He knew, like I've said now for the 3rd, 4th time, he knew if he scored, that would have been 1-1 going into halftime for the Union. That would have forced Portland to unpark the bus. And in my opinion, I would have had Jamiro Monteiro take it. And as we know, Jim Curtin doesn't have a set penalty taker, so maybe this changes his mind in the future going forward. But mind you, there is no one that has taken a penalty with confidence on this team. Nobody on this team has great penalty numbers. You look at Kacper. He missed a penalty last year against Orlando. He's 2 for 4 in his pro career. You look at Ali Bedoya, which I found this so surprising. He's 0 for 1 in his entire career. A veteran of 10 plus years in Ali Bedoya has only taken 1 penalty in his professional career. Jamiro Monteiro, he's 3 for 4 in penalties in his career. And remind you, his penalty was saved last year against the New York Red Bulls. And by the way, the dude that tried to debate with me on Twitter about, that not counting as a miss because it was saved. Did the ball go in the back of the net when Jamiro took the penalty? Yes or no? The answer to that is no. No, the ball did not go in the back of the net. So therefore, that is a miss. Just because it was saved doesn't mean that Jamiro missed the penalty. The ball didn't go in the back of the net. So I'm glad that I didn't interact with you because, I think you were just looking for a troll on the night and everything. And you got to be mindful of those people on Twitter and whatnot. And El Brujo, he's 1 for 1 in his career for penalties, but he hadn't taken a penalty in 5 years, I believe it was. So the sample size isn't the best. Like I said, I understand why Sergio took the penalty, and I'm not blaming him for the miss. It was a high leverage situation. He's feeling good about himself because he had 3 goals already in this competition. And granted, they were from open play and everything, but still, when a striker's feeling it, when he has the rhythm down, how to score a goal, odds are he's going to score you another goal. And unfortunately, Sergio missed a penalty, and it could have changed the whole momentum of this game, but I'm not blaming him at all for that penalty miss. I understood why he took it. Would I put somebody else on there? Yes, but, I understand, and I think a lot of us need to understand that it just made sense, even though he's never taken one in his career, because there is no data that said he would have missed it. Yeah, you can say, oh, he's never taken one, so he's bound to miss it. You don't know that. You absolutely do not know that. And if you're saying you knew that, you're lying. You're lying. And, there's just nothing to it. No data says that he was going to miss that just because he's never taken one. There's no data on the guy. How can you argue with data? You can't. You cannot. Good luck. And then the second point is the VAR rules off Kacper's goal for offsides. So, if you guys have listened to the podcast when I used to talk about the Premier League, then you know that I'm a big supporter of VAR, even when it costs my team. And maybe my issue isn't VAR. Actually, in fact, it is not VAR. It's the line judge that I have an issue with. I thought the rule was only raise your flag for offsides if it's clear and obvious. There is no way. There is no way that you can tell me that the line judge thought that Kacper was clearly offsides, that it was clear and obvious. There's no way. There is no way I will accept that. This call was a millimeters once we saw VAR. He was millimeters off. There is no way that the referee saw, oh yeah, he's definitely off by a mile. There's no way. Because if I'm correct, going back and reading the Pro Refs handbook, it says, delay the rising of the flag when there is a tight offsides offense. We are talking millimeters. That is as tight as it can get. And he raises his flag because, oh, I'm so confident that he was offsides. Pro Refs even came out and said after IFAB, who, if you guys don't know who that is, that's the International Football Association's board. So basically, the people who come up with the laws of the game. And they listened to the guidelines and the lessons learned from the 2018 FIFA World Cup, meaning referees would delay their flags in that tournament. Pro officials are delaying the flag and whistle for offsides when there is a clear and immediate attacking situation. Okay, great. The referee raises flag after Kacper put the ball in the back of the net. But again, you cannot convince me that the line judge just knew that Kacper was off. Millimeters, folks. Millimeters we are talking about. When you look at the angle VAR gave us, it was Kacper's boot. It was too big. His shoe size was a tad too big. And look, they would have went to VAR even if the line judge didn't raise his flag. If it was a goal scored. We know all goal scorers go to VAR automatically to make sure everything was in check. But if the line judge kept that flag down, then VAR would have said, not clear and obvious, the goal stands. We would have been tied up 2-2. But because he raises the flag, it's not clear and obvious for VAR to overturn the call. So is Kacper off? Yes. I said it, by millimeters. By millimeters. From the angles that we saw, he's barely off. But I just can't be convinced that the line judge knew that he was offsides. There is no way. I don't care who you are. This referee can come onto the podcast and tell me, oh yeah, I knew he was offsides. No, you yourself, I don't even know your name, and I probably should have looked it up. I could have given you Blunder of the Week, but you're just not worth my time. There's just no way that you can convince me that you knew Kacper was off. There is just no way. No way. Sorry for getting excited. Sorry for getting passionate about those two subjects, and those were the two turning points for this game. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? A couple other points that I want to talk about. Just the Union, they can't break down teams that park the bus. Look, guys, we saw it last year in Chester against Portland, Seattle, and Colorado. As soon as the whistle blew to start those games, those three teams parked the bus and hit the Union on the counterattack to score the goals. Portland completely took Aronson out of the game with Chara man-marking him all game. The left back for Portland did a fantastic job sniffing out the Union's attack on the right side with Bedoya and Ray, who, by the way, we all know doesn't give you much attacking-wise, Ray Gaddis, that is. But we don't need to beat a dead horse about Ray Gaddis going forward and everything. Talked about it on this podcast plenty of times. Talk about it on social media all the times. Like, we get it. We know. He's good his own defensively for the most part. Attacking doesn't offer you much. They need more creative players to unlock teams that just sit deep in the midfield, in my opinion. Elsinio changed the game a little bit. He was getting Portland unorganized at times, but they were putting 2-3 guys on him at a time and everything, and he just wasn't able to dribble his way out of that. But the 4-4-2 does not work when a team's just going to sit back on you. The Union have to change the formation somehow. Whether it's go to a 4-3-3, I don't know. But I think it's pretty obvious. We saw, like I said, Portland, Seattle, and Colorado park the bus against the Union while they played in a 4-4-2. We saw as soon as Portland scored a goal, they parked the bus. And that's when the Union looked really, really bad, is when they have to face teams that park the bus right away as soon as they score a goal, because the Union don't know how to unlock those teams. And it's really, really disappointing where more and more teams are going to realize this. You know, it might not be their playing style, but they're like, hey, look, the Union, they have a really good team. We respect it. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to park the bus. And when the Union play against Cincinnati, the bus is going to be parked. We saw in that Portland game against Cincinnati where the whole game Cincinnati parked the bus. And it's going to be the same when the Union plays Cincinnati this year. The Union have to find a way to just unlock teams that sit deep. There's just no way around it. If we notice it, there's no way that Jim doesn't notice this. He knows. And I think he talked about it when they were interviewing him during the game where he's like, yeah, it's going to be tough now. It's going to be very, very difficult for us to break down Portland as they are up 2-0. They're sitting very, very deep. They're compact. But we'll see. We're going to give it everything we got in. Luckily, we got a goal from Andrew Wooten, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. My next point I want to bring up, not using all 5 subs when players would gas. The substitution choices were questionable all tournament, but especially in this game against Portland. Jim spoke, I think, during the week about Sergio Santos regaining his sharpness and able to go past the typical 60-minute mark that Jim takes him out. I just don't understand why you would take out Sergio in the 59th minute when he brought pace to your team. When Portland were up 1-0, sitting deep already, and you needed somebody with pace. The fastest player on this team is Sergio Santos, and you take him off for Elsinio. I mean, we all knew Elsinio was coming into this game, but I would have rather have seen Kacper come out. No, he didn't have a great game, didn't have a great tournament. And again, we'll talk about Kacper as well a little bit later in the podcast, but I just don't understand why we waited until the 72nd minute to bring in Wooten. You only used 2 subs when we needed attacking options, when we were down 2-0. You had Galeno on the bench, brings you pace, brings you speed. Yes, he's young. You have DeVries, who's also young, brings you creativity. You have Fontana, brings you creativity. You had all 3 of those guys on the bench, and you only used 2 substitutions. 2 out of 5. And again, I don't want to beat this into a dead horse because a lot of people have been giving it to Jim, talking about why isn't Jim using all 5 substitutions, and for the most part, his subs have been working. But you've got to go for it. With Jim barely using his bench, you know what that tells me? That tells me that he doesn't trust the depth of this team. And if that's the case, then we better be bringing in some players now that the transfer market is open. I know that they said during the tournament we're not going to be active in the transfer market. Okay, I respect that. We're out of the tournament now. And Jim Curtin basically sent that message that, yeah, my players I have on the bench, they're not good enough. They're not good enough to break down teams that sit deep. So hopefully, with the Union having 2 weeks off until our next game, like I said, against New England, hopefully they bring in a new signing. And no, I don't want it just to be Corey Burke. I mean, we all want to see Corey Burke come back and get his visa issues figured out and everything, but I'm not going to be satisfied if that's the only move they make in the summer, because that is ridiculous to only use 2 out of 5 of your substitutions when you had plenty of attacking options on the bench. And I get it. You're the coach. You see things different, and I'm not trying to bash Jim Curtin at all. I think he's a great coach for us and everything, but the substitution pattern was poor. It was really, really poor. You gave 6 minutes to DeVries this tournament. You gave 40 minutes to Wooten. You gave 45 to Anthony Fontana and 228 for Elsinio. Only 4 attacking bench options saw any minutes in this tournament. I understand not wanting to rest starters for the 3 group stage games, as those games count towards the regular season and those points are crucial. I also understand going with your best 11 in the knockout games. I just don't understand not using all 5 substitutions in any of the games. I'm really not trying to knock Jim Curtin. I think he's a great coach. I'm not saying Jim Curtin out, even though some crazy people are already saying that, saying same old Union. I'm just saying the sub usage, it just does not make sense to me. And especially Jim, when you said before the tournament that people that don't normally get minutes, they're going to see minutes this tournament. And it didn't happen. Like I said, only 4 attacking options on the bench saw minutes this tournament. So Jim sees these guys in practice, and if he doesn't think they're good enough, then we got to trust him. You know, I haven't lost faith in Jim Curtin, and hopefully most of you guys haven't either. It's just definitely infuriating seeing such little activity from the bench. So, like I said, hopefully we see some signings before our game against New England. The next topic I want to talk about is the lack of urgency in the final third. I know people have asked this in previous podcasts. Is it concerning about the final third, about the end product in the final third? Yes, it is. And it's been an issue throughout the whole tournament. And again, this goes back to not being able to break down a team that parks the bus. But even before Portland were up 1-0, Kacper played a couple of bad passes, especially to Aronson. I think he tried a back pass to Aronson, who was pretty much wide open, would have got a shot off, I think. Misplaced his pass. Kacper, Sergio, Aronson, Jamiro, and Gaddis, they all gave the ball away way too many times in the final third. It just wasn't crisp. The decision-making, it was too slow at times, in my opinion. When the Union had their chances, it came from moving the ball fast. But when they just take the time, passing the ball backwards, going side to side, couldn't break down Portland. And in my opinion, Aronson touched the ball way too little. He touched the ball 35 times in this game, and he didn't get substituted out of the game at all. I would have loved to have seen Brendan drop deeper to receive the ball. But again, like I said earlier, I mean, it's a credit to Char for shutting him down all game. He did a fantastic job man-marking him, making it a tough game for Brendan Aronson, who, in my opinion, had his worst game of the whole tournament. And yeah, not a great time to have your worst game in a semifinal where could have been going to the final. But again, I'm not trying to single out any player. I think overall the team played really good, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the last bad thing I want to talk about is both goals could have been avoided, because it's just really sickening when you think about both of the goals came because of lack of concentration. They had 2 corners. Kai got caught ball watching, and Blanco was left unmarked on the back post. We heard Jim say plenty of times that we need to start better coming out of the water breaks, guys. We need to stop lacking urgency. You got to get set for corners. And it goes back to people being gassed. It's bad because, you know, all this could have been avoided. But all it takes is for one person to lose their mark, to ball watch, and they have an easy goal. And yeah, we caught a ton of breaks. You know, Portland fluffed a lot of their shots, kicked it right to Andre Blake. Didn't make it difficult for him at all. We could have lost by a lot more. But man, concentration, especially when Jim Curtin preached on it multiple times throughout this tournament. We got to start better, guys. We got to start better. We can't lose concentration. And it's those 2 goals that cost us. It's really, really discouraging. And I wanted to ask this poll on Twitter. I don't know how you guys feel, but in my opinion, I think this loss to Portland hurts a lot worse than the loss to Atlanta in the quarterfinal of the playoffs last year. Why? Because if we would have won this game, we would have went to a final. If we would have beat Atlanta, then we were only going to a semifinal against Toronto. Now, granted, we would have hosted that game in Chester, so I don't know. Maybe things could have went better than they did for Atlanta against Toronto, but Toronto were hot last year, and you know that whole playoff game against Atlanta, it's in the past and everything. And in my opinion, I just think maybe because it's fresher, that this loss to Portland hurts a lot worse than the loss did last year against Atlanta in the playoffs. But I want to focus on a couple good, and I'll give my positive takeaways from the playoffs and everything, from the tournament. A couple good moments and everything. Andrew Wooten, he finally scores, and I think that's huge. It was a nifty finish. He was in the right place at the right time. He struggled with staying fit. We all know that in such a short amount of time. But I'm not ready to write him off yet. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably done with seeing Andrew Wooten on the field. And I get it. I really do. There's a guy who's been a proven goal scorer in the 2nd division in German football. This is a guy who was hyped up to be a guy just has a knack of scoring goals. And we haven't seen it yet. But he was in the right place at the right time. He might not be an MLS quality starter, but I still think that he's a quality bench piece because he is a proven goal scorer. Yeah, he's not a proven goal scorer in MLS, but he's a proven goal scorer nonetheless. He knows how to put the ball in the back of the net. He knows how to get in good positions. And it was never a matter of can he score. It's just a matter of can he stay fit. So hopefully, with that goal that Andrew scored, hopefully that's enough to get his confidence going for the regular season. And when we need to rely on a goal or just to put the game away, hopefully Andrew can give us that when the regular season starts back up. I thought Jack Elliott played a phenomenal game, showed great hustle, and I'd argue this was probably the best player on the night for the Union, as he had 3 blocked shots, 2 interceptions. He won all 4 of his defensive headers. He was dribbled by 1 time, but most importantly, he kept his composure when Portland went on the counter. They should have made it 3-0. But you know what? Jack was back there to clean it up. He didn't panic at all when Portland had more numbers, and they totally botched that counterattack where Andre Blake's caught out a goal. And yeah, it was a mess from Portland. But it all starts with Jack Elliott not giving up on that play. If Jack wasn't back there hustling, if Jack wasn't back there just trying to keep the defense organized, then we would have been down 3-0. Andrew Wooten probably wouldn't have scored a goal. And the last part is just this team doesn't give up. Once Jack made that stop, then a couple minutes afterwards, we won a free kick on the left side. Jamir shoots it, keeper spills it, and like I said, Andrew Wooten scores his first goal for the club. And like a minute or two later, the Union are right back at it again with a chance. Kacper scores, like I said earlier, we all know, ruled offsides, BS call. But how many times in the past have we seen the Union show no fight, no spirit once they concede a goal? No. This team is different. We knew it last year. They found a way to try to get right back into this game. So many times last season, they went behind, but they found a way to tie the game up or eventually win the game altogether. You'd love to see the urgency because teams of the past, they just concede first. There's no coming back. Well, it's time to leave the stadium because this team is just going to give up. They conceded. It's like wasting my money, wasting my time coming to this game because players obviously don't care. Not with this team. And I'll give it to you, yeah. For 75 minutes, the Union were really, really terrible. The worst game of the tournament. But the last 15, Jack makes that stop, stops them from going 3-0 up against us. Jamir finally places a good free kick on net. Wooten's there to score. And the team gets momentum going in their favor. Kacper scores offsides. And yeah, it could have been different ball game. But no, I think that there is a lot of positivity, a lot of positive to take away from this tournament. And I saw this post on r/Philly Union on the subreddit, and I like the questions they asked. So I'm going to give my answers to the questions, which are as following. How do I think the Union played overall? I think they played well. I think getting 7 out of 9 total points for the regular season, I think that was fantastic. It places us in 4th place. We're tied with Orlando with 8 points. I think a lot of people took notice of this team. A lot of casual fans of soccer, a lot of people that don't care about soccer, or a lot of just fans in general in MLS who don't think of the Philadelphia Union as a powerhouse. I think a lot of people took notice that the Union are a top 6 team in all of MLS, in my opinion. Yeah, maybe that's giving them way too much credit, but I really do think the Union are a top 6 team. They're not the best team by any means. Do they have the best depth? Well, according to Jim Curtin, with his substitutions, probably not. But you can't convince me otherwise that they don't have the best midfield. I think they have the best left back in Kai Wagner. Andre Blake showed that he's the best goalkeeper in MLS again. They have pieces. Do they have a superstar? No, we all know that. But I think at times this team played really attractive soccer. I think the dummy that Jamir did against Miami, that was so slick. The counterattacks are really, really good. Andre Blake, like I said, best goalkeeper in MLS now. He's back to his old self. Mark McKenzie, Brendan Aronson, they both progressed and gained national spotlight. Both of these guys are getting looked at by multiple European clubs. And just for the most part, I thought the defense was really solid. They gave up 0.83 goals per game, so not even a goal a game. They kept 2 clean sheets, and for the most part, they were just really, really solid. And that's what you come to expect when a team's been playing with each other for a year. So I say overall, I think the Union get a B for this tournament. They got 7 out of 9 points, make it to a semifinal, and a lot of players got better. A lot of spotlight came onto this team, and I think the Union are a team that are going to start getting respect around the league, which it's about time. The next question was, who was the best player of the tournament? And for me, it comes down to 3 players, and those 3 players are Andre Blake. He averaged a 7.4 match rating per game. He had 32 saves throughout this tournament, and he played every single minute of the tournament with 540 minutes. Brendan Aronson, he had 6.7 match rating throughout 6 games. He had 2 assists, and in my opinion, his best game came against Sporting Kansas City. He played 520 minutes. And Jameer Montero, he had a 7.2 match rating per game. 1 goal, 1 assist. Again, I've said this before in the podcast, he's doing all the dirty work. And I respect a player that does all the dirty work. And it's not going to show with goals or assists, but everything else. Dribbling, winning the ball back, finding creative chances that lead to the assist. Jameer Montero, he does it all for you. And now you can make a strong case for Kai Wagner, but in my opinion, that Portland game was his worst game of the tournament. And I think that took him out of consideration for me. El Brujo, he is really, really good throughout this tournament. And how many times have I talked about him in the past? How many times have you guys talked about him on social media? But in my opinion, you just can't tell me otherwise that Andre Blake wasn't the player of the tournament for the Union. I'd make a strong case that he should win MVP of the whole tournament, but with the Union not being in the final, he won't get MVP. So Andre Blake, I think, is definitely the MVP of the tournament for the Union. Like I said earlier, he was the worst player of the tournament. For me, unfortunately, that is Kacper. Scored 1 goal in 518 minutes. He had 3 goals called for offsides. His finishing and touch weren't as sharp as they were last season. Yes, maybe his sharpness, his fitness wasn't as great as it was last year. If you forgot, he tested positive for COVID. Not saying that, he's still struggling from it. If he was, he wouldn't have been playing. But, it's just no denying that he wasn't as sharp as he was last season. And when your main striker only scores 1 goal in 518 minutes, you are going to struggle. And luckily, so many players stepped up throughout this tournament that helped this team advance as far as they did. But you've got to get better production out of Kacper Schrebelker. So hopefully when they go into cooler weather, which, granted, it's still hot. It is still hot in Philadelphia. It's still hot here in Maryland. But they're not going to be dealing with the very, very high humidity that they were down in Florida. So hopefully Kacper can get back to the form he was on last year. Which player surprised me the most? It comes down to 2 players, and that's either Andre Blake or El Brujo. But in my opinion, I'm going with Andre Blake because seeing him struggle in 2018, and then he took a huge regression in 2019, I thought we needed a new goalkeeper. I thought he was done, but he proved me wrong. He was the best goalkeeper in the tournament, had the most saves in the tournament. Like I said, you can make an argument for him to be MVP of the whole tournament. He is for sure the MVP for the Union, but for the whole tournament, you can definitely make a case. El Brujo, he was marketed to us as a quote-unquote unfinished project. How many times have I talked about that on this podcast? But we were told about his aggression. We were told about his speed. We were told that he plays defense. But his passing is what surprised me the most. And so you can make a case for El Brujo, and if you told me El Brujo, I would not deny you that. But I think for me, the player that surprised me the most was Andre Blake for just finding the 2016 version of Andre Blake, who you could argue this 2020 version of Andre Blake is better than the MVP version of Andre Blake in 2016. I am here. If you want to argue that, I am here to listen because I think you have a very, very strong argument in 8 games played we've seen the Union play so far. So I am here if you want to argue that. I will definitely listen to you argue your case if you think the 2020 version of Andre Blake's better than the 2016. Favorite game of the tournament? I think the New England game, the 1-0 win, I think that game's up there. I think that was probably the most complete game we saw the Union play. But I got to give it to the Sporting Kansas City game where the Union won 3-1. 2 great goals by Sergio. Brendan Aronson played his best game when apparently all these scouts were watching and everything. So, yeah, it was definitely, in my opinion, that Sporting Kansas City game. Andre Blake, huge in that game. Great counterattacking goals. And, yeah, it was nice to finally get one back on Sporting Kansas City. And finally, the favorite goal of the tournament. I think I got to give it to Sergio Santos for his goal against New England. Like I said, I think that was probably the most complete game by the Union against New England. I mean, to lift the ball past the goalkeeper off of that tough angle on the left doesn't get much tougher than that. And I believe that was goal of the week? I believe it was. And yeah, you can argue either one of his goals against Sporting Kansas City. Both of them were great goals. The dink over the goalkeeper, the speed of Sergio to get his second. But I just think, it was a tighter angle against New England. So that's why I'm giving that goal of the week, the goal of the tournament, in my opinion. And guys, we've been going for a long time and everything. And, I am out of my breath and everything. And so do I give Blunder of the week? Do I not? Oh man, I really don't want to talk about this for too long, but yeah, I guess we might as well give Blunder of the week, guys. So my Blunder of the week are going to the sports personalities, the sports talk show hosts that keep talking about the NBA and NHL bubbles, about how they're doing it right, like they were the first people to do it. Like, come on, guys. Show some respect to MLS. They were the first people to do it. Oh, I guess technically it was the NWSL, the Women's Soccer League. They did a great job out in Utah. But to sit here and act like MLS, NWSL don't exist, I mean, it's laughable. It's laughable, but yeah, we live in America, and so, soccer gets overlooked by these sports personalities, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised at all. But I want to give you guys an update for next week's agenda. So, we're going to continue with our series that started it all with this podcast, where we heard from Union fans and we heard the backstories, how they got into the Union, any stories they want to talk about, different topics. So we're going to get back in doing that until we get our next game against New England, which I said was August 21st. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys enjoy the ramble and everything. I try to keep the positivity, I think there's a lot of good to take away from this tournament. I really do. A lot of players stepped up. The team, I thought, as a whole, got better. You heard last episode where I said, I think this team right now is better than the team last season. I know they didn't look like it against Portland, but I honestly believe that, guys. I really do. This is a team that's played with each other for a whole year. They know what to expect from each other, and it didn't go our way against Portland. It sucks. It really does suck, and I get your pain. I get a lot of you guys who have been supporters of this team since the beginning. It said it's the same old Union. They don't care. I get it, but it's only a matter of time. And yeah, this is our chance to finally get our first trophy. And now there's some people saying, oh, don't care, never cared about the tournament to begin with. Yeah, if they would have won this, you would have cared. You definitely would have cared. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble. I'll be back again sometime this next week, talking with different Union fans, listening to how they got into the team. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.